Thank you. All right, now I'd like to introduce Sam and Hillary from Emory and Henry, who are going to speak to us about their experience at the Ripple Interfaith Conference. Please give them a welcome. You can stand there, you can stand up here, whichever is good for you. You can use that mic if you like to stand, or if you can come up here, whatever works best for you.
Maybe this is best. Can you hear me? Okay, so my primary goal here is to set the stage to introduce Hillary and have her be able to speak to her experience at this conference, but I just want to give all the context for kind of what this conference means to me and to others. So in kind of a trying time, this conference was kind of a shining light, and so I want to really give credence to that. So my name's Sam Davis. I grew up, I was born in Emory in a small house that was torn down, and grew up in this area, very cherished to me, and now I'm back in the area. I work at Emory Henry as the Director of New Student Advising, so I get to work with all the incoming students on a pretty intimate level, which is really a joy to me. I really cherish that. Let's see, last year, Sharon Wright, some of you may know her, she's the chaplain at Emory and Henry and pastor at the United Methodist Church in Emory, came to me and said, hey, I heard about this conference called the Ripple Conference at Elon University. Elon was my alma mater, and I was like, wow, I don't know how I hadn't heard of this conference, and she's like, well, let's get some students to go. I have a little bit of money that I've hidden away for just something like this. And so we took some students last year, and it was just an amazing experience. It's called the Ripple Conference. It has an interfaith theme of trying to bring people together. I think this was its 11th year, or maybe 10th. I'm not sure, I can't remember. But it has a special meaning for me in that when I was at Elon, I worked in the Center for Religious and Spiritual Life as the intern for interfaith engagement, one of two interns there. We were housed in this little house with the chaplain there at the time, and when I was there, we hired a new chaplain, we hired a administrative assistant for the center as well, and over the years there, we worked to get this large center built on Elon's campus, now called the Newman Lumen Center, which is just a whole building dedicated to interfaith and conversation. And it's grown now into a pretty large group on campus at Elon. They have a college imam. They have multiple college chaplains, and there were something like 10 to 15 interns there now working on this conference. It's an entirely student-run conference. And so for me, getting to go back to this conference and just seeing how amazing it was, students came from Rochester, New York, from Texas, from Florida, from Cornell, North Dakota, Michigan, like just people from all over. I mean, it was so many students and such a wide diversity of students, and the energy was just so for kind of how difficult it felt like having these conversations in kind of the political context. It was it really felt very positive and very impressive. To be having these conversations with people who are very different, and just seeing those conversations between people who are clearly very different. So again, it carries a lot of weight for me to go back to this and to be able to bring students. So this was our second year going to this conference. And Hillary, there were two other students that went. They're not able to be here today. But I do think Hillary had maybe the best experience out of all of them. So I'm excited that she was able to come and share some of her experience. And we're counting a bit on questions. So if you have any questions, any thoughts, we're both up here to answer those. But I want to introduce Hillary, who has a great story and is a great student of mine. So.
Good morning. My name is Hillary Pitre. I'm originally from Florida, but I've been living with my parents outside of the country for a couple of years. We moved back to the U.S. just a year ago. I was raised with a Catholic background, but I've had experiences and connections with different religions throughout my life. The Ripple Conference was able to allow us a safe space of discussion with many other students from different backgrounds and different religious practices, just being able to be part of the services such as the Jewish congregation of the school, as well as the Muslim and Islam-based service on the first to second day of the conference, also offering Catholic Mass on the third day. They invited everyone to share their own experiences with their religious backgrounds and just to share how they've been experiencing faith in the context of the difficulty of being in either a new country or a new school environment, and how they experience it individually and how they interact with other faiths, and if they've changed to a different faith, how they found it, how they find community in the new people that they've met throughout their careers in college.
So I guess if anyone has any questions, I just want to make sure we have enough time for that. Yeah.
What were some of were there specific experiences at the conference that really stand out to you, or maybe made a big impact, or kind of got your attention, or made you think differently than maybe what you came to the conference with?
Well, during the second day, they provided a service for the Jewish Shabbat, and they were many students that were part of that faith. They had their own group. They were singing their traditional. They had a choir. They were sharing their just like their traditional songs and just the celebration in general. They were making everyone part of it, and they brought the group together for it, and just the energy that they provided during the service and how they all came together, even the ones from different faiths, and they were invited to actively participate in it. It was very uplifting, being able to be welcomed into something new and something different.
I can speak to your question just real quick. For me, they have these breakout sessions where they'll have like an expert on something, or just have experience, or some of the students will have and so these small groups where we get together and there's kind of an activity. There was one that really has stuck with me, and it was an organization called Interfaith Photo Voice. I think photo voice is a concept that's been around for a while, where people will choose a photo or two to represent an idea, or maybe their faith or gratitude, or some kind of theme, and then they'll sit down with people, and it's an incredibly structured thing where you have 2 minutes to describe what that photo means to you. And then 2 minutes for questions, where you don't respond to the questions. You just lay out the questions for 2 minutes, and then you have 2 minutes to respond to those questions. It's a very boom, boom, boom. It makes you really, really think hard about what you want to say about that photo. And for me, it was sharing, it was a question about gratitude, and it was sharing about like looking around at Elon and my experience there, and just kind of my gratitude at the opportunity that I had to go to Elon in the first place, which is thanks to an old Emory program that does not exist anymore. I was very lucky to go. It's a kind of an amazing place. If you haven't been to Elon, it's almost too nice. But they have this Newman Lumen Center and this whole thing around interfaith that has just blossomed, and I just felt overwhelming gratitude in that I was able to be a small part of that. They call it the Ripple Conference, and so going back to this conference for me feels like I'm seeing just giant waves from the ripples that I saw when I was there. And so that has stuck with me, and honestly, I think as like any group, I think it's a really cool thing to do, this photo voice thing. So if anybody wants to try to put that together, I think this community would probably be really well suited to an activity like that. So we can talk about that. But yeah. Yeah.
Just curious, was this a Judeo-Christian conference, or did you have actual outsiders? And if you have outsiders, no offense, I'm curious as to how it went over in this area.
So Elon is, it's in central North Carolina, in between Burlington, Greensboro, kind of near Raleigh almost. So it's a very different area than here. Still southeast, still a lot of that, and Burlington is an interesting place in and of itself. But just a much larger kind of city, almost urban, just a wider range of people overall than, say, here.
And remind me, is Elon private or is it public?
It's private. Originally, it was associated with the United Church of Christ. They disaffiliated in the 90s, I think, and so they're unaffiliated with any religious organization, but they still have a bit of that history tied in there. So to answer your question, it's, I would say it's not Judeo-Christian inherently. I mean, maybe the majority of the people there are Christian, Jewish, or Muslim. There are a few Jain, a few Baha'i students, quite a few Hindu students actually.
Pagans?
Yeah, there were some pagans. And it's all about kind of bringing all the different groups together to have conversation. There were a couple of breakout sessions for doing tarot, and I can't remember what other activities there were. What was an activity for you that really showed you kind of the diversity of?
They had the course on exploring divination and tarot. They had a practitioner of paganism to lend us information on it and just how they experience it themselves. And they invited us to look more into it separately, and they explained the different decks of cards and just how every deck is different, and depending on the background or the country that the practitioner comes from, they read it differently and it holds a different meaning for them.
I think it's
General question. In this interfaith experience, attending the services of the various faiths like Sabbat or Hindu, did you find your own personal spiritual path challenged?
Well, I'm not currently assisting or affiliated exclusively to one faith or the other. I feel very comfortable in just exploring or being open to the ideas of different faith or religious backgrounds. So I didn't see it challenged per se, just fed in a way, just being able to have that exchange of experiences and just that exchange of information, being able to see how others experience their own faith, either more similarly and more open like my own, or more dedicated to one specifically.
Thank you.
And just personally, I find interfaith is like my own faith, right? And so like I don't ascribe to anything, but like bringing people together is what I'm about. And so it was restoring for me. You know, it didn't really challenge me in any way. I just wanted more of it. You know. I think you had your hand up earlier.
I just want to make sure that members of this congregation understand that Hillary